You then back at the ranch, because that's how witches are. Then determined to, listen, be that hypocrite. You believe a certain thing as to how people should be. And then when you win people for your rhetoric, when you win converts to your school of thought, you then decide that among those converts is one that gives you a little bit of your run for your money. And so you want to be the only one that makes any sense. You want to convince poor, lowly black people with a typical, like, ghetto, wretched black demeanor. You want to go and grab that lady and gentrify her. But if she already rocks up just like you, a little bit of a snob, a little bit of a gentrified somebody, little bit of an ideological spearheader, a paradigm shifter, you are already a thought leader. When then another woman rocks up that is exactly like you, who also just like you, was in the left, realized the folly and the barbarism inside the left, divorced herself from left thought and then became right-winged, and then started to become a protagonist against right-wing trash, who also was not a pagan, but an unbeliever, who then gave her life over to the Lord. And now she is mixing politics with religion. So as to show people that you, listen, can't carry on like this. And the two are not divorced, because David was a politician in the worst way. Moses was a politician in the worst way. Joseph was a politician in the worst way. Some of the biggest and baddest characters in the scriptures were politicians, so I don't know why. You would want to basically divorce religion from politics. You can't, because God is involved in politics. That's how he heals nations, through their kings. So if you don't care for political matters, then yeah, when a woman then finally gets to that space and realizes it, and so therefore is a P in a similar pod with you, and then you're like, no, listen, I want to grab them wretched and ghetto and gentrify them. I can't grab them already refined, because then on that day, she's going to come and step on my toes. You're competing. You're being a typical black person. You want to go and help only those blacks that are practically bleeding every single day, but not the ones that already got this. That is what Candace Owens is out here doing. This rain is gonna like cramp my style, like in the worst way. It's gonna cramp my style because it's gonna be so loud. Out here showering my roof, but it's okay. We'll speak through it with a very loud voice. After all, we are loud against trash. Yeah. Well, one other crazy thing that Candace Owens is, a woman that looks like that, a woman that has that kind of rhetoric on her lips, a woman with that kind of ideology, out here destroying people of a similar ideology so she can be the only one. That is anti-progress. That is regression. That is, listen, I am trying to proliferate the embedment of black people, but back at the ranch, you want to keep them the same because you're living in a silo. You're living in a silo. You want to be the only one. I like to use this example when I was watching Netflix. When I was watching Netflix some time ago, I was watching The Flash, Barry Allen, that DC show. And in The Flash, you see now it's like raining. I feel like I should move. But let me speak about this and then only we'll move. I did say after all 10 to 15 minutes, right? Barry Allen in the first season of The Flash, or the second, I don't know, one of them seasons, but I think it was the first season. The main villain, the arch villain over there, the lead villain, you know how there is the superhero, so now the super villain? Yeah, the super villain was some dude. This rain, it's interrupting with my acoustics. Some super villain dude by the name of, I forgot his name. But this super villain essentially wanted to destroy the multiverse, like all the planets, all the planet Earths of the multiverse. He wanted to destroy all of them. But he wanted to keep Earth one, and so therefore universe one. Why? Because after all, I gotta have somewhere to hang my coat. Black people with this crazy incendiary sabotagey agenda. Sabotagey agenda. Strangely imagine, right? When Barry Allen asked him, why are you not destroying Earth one? And the guy was like, after all, I have to have somewhere to hang my coat. So he was saying, I need to destroy you, Barry Allen, because you will always be an adversary to me. You will always come up against me, but I can't destroy this Earth because where am I going to live? I need to have an Earth to live on. But then you go and you destroy all other multiverses. You are counterproductive, right? Yeah, that supervillain in The Flash, God uses him time and time again to help me understand what in the world is going on in the black community. We've got all these crazy people that want prosperity, they want success. And they want their own little unique villages, just their villages, their own little corner of the world, their own houses, their own cars, their own children. Only they are ensconced from black defeatism or from the elements of the earth that can afflict everybody. Only these guys. Yeah. But like then to hell with everybody else. To hell with everybody else. To the abyss. And the flaming one at that. With everybody else that needs ensconcement and shelter from the rain. To hell with all other black people. I'm going to be the only one successful. It is a black mindset. You're like that super villain. If anything, my phone right now, I want to find his name. Super villain that wanted to destroy the multiverse in The Flash. I want to find his name. Super villain that wanted to destroy, supervillain that wanted to destroy the multiverse in the Flash. I want his name. I used to remember it, but it's a long time ago. In the Flash, Zoom. His name was Zoom. His name was Zoom. He wanted to destroy the multiverse, but keep only Earth one, killing Barry Allen. Because after all, he needs to have somewhere to hang his coat. Black people that destroy other black people are like Zoom. They think they can maintain only their little village while destroying the entire country. They think that they can uproot all blacks until they're the only ones that are out just standing on a podium like Martin Luther King saying, I have a dream. That's what's going on. And behind every crazy Zoom-esque man is a Zoom-esque woman. They get helped by women. Even if these women are married to white men, even if these women escaped the grain, even if these women escaped the typicality, even though they escaped the commonality, even though they escaped the stereotype, they want all of us to make like Sierra and go out here being a beautiful young woman with great promise, give some idiot with 50,000 children a 50,001st child and think that you're going to be the cut above the rest, a different one, because you're the celebrity, you're the one that's got the music videos with the beautiful buttock. And so of course Future is not going to wreak your havoc in your life, Sierra. Of course he's going to love you because you're Sierra. Otherwise, he's busy out here lambasting the bodies of other dancers, putting babies in their stomachs. The guy's not using protection. I wonder if he's not worried about HIV. He keeps on just hopping into women's bodies, making babies, littering them across the streets of America. And then Sierra rocks up and thinks that finally Future's gonna make out of me an honest woman. And guess what? Yeah, he did. He tried. He proposed marriage to her. But when she was heavily pregnant, he did what? He did a typical thing. He cheated. He betrayed her. He wreaked havoc. And now Sierra is out here co-parenting with a blended family, having married another man. You want black women to have glitches and twitches and commas and asterisks and underscores and dashes in their sentences. They cannot be linear. They can't just flow. Life cannot just be first the number one, followed by the number two, followed by the number three, and then number four. Black women are not allowed to be excellent students in school, get to university, graduate, get your first job in an internship, and then after that meet the love of your life, then after that get married, then after that start to have 10,000 babies. We can't have that dream. We can't. We cannot have that dream because there must always be an interruption in a black person's life. So you could be a star student in school, but then you're gonna have some friend or cousin of yours sabotage your career. When I was at this university, one of my cousins decided that I'm not gonna get a degree. Okay. Yeah, you will then have somebody interrupt that, but then when you strive anyway to it, you then get your first job in corporate, and then somebody will trip you up by trying to like mess with your career. They'll sabotage you, they'll wreak havoc, they'll bewitch you, you'll then lose jobs, you'll get interviews and fail them, you will hop from company to company, and then one day you will also arrive at a juncture where some idiot is telling you, I will give you this promotion to become a senior manager if you sleep with me. Yeah, that's the black woman's career over there. And then if she says no, I guess you get maintained in a lowly position. And then she will date a guy for 20,000 years that's never gonna propose marriage to her, even though she is perfect as a girlfriend, and then insist on putting a baby in her stomach. That happened to one of my friends. Even though she made it clear that I don't want to have a child before wedlock. That's where fornication becomes problematic. Guys be out here demanding babies even though they have not made an honest woman out of you. Yeah. You then give this idiot a baby, and just like with Sierra, even though he proposed marriage to you, even though he said he was going to make out of you an honest woman, he then betrays the living daylights out of you when you're 7 heavy months pregnant. And so you break up. You become a baby mama, but then stop being a girlfriend. And then you marry some other dude with a blended family. We can never be like Candace Owens, all of us, right? We can never go to school, graduate, meet a love, and then marry him, then only start having a cornucopia of babies. We can't have that dream. It has to be only 1 or 2 or 10 of us. And so if it's only 10 of us, we get to be maintained, preened, postured like peacocks on a mountaintop as the only ones that broke out of the black grain. And then you claim to be an advocate for black progress? What the heck? If at all, you can't grab 10 women and make sure that from the time they come out of their mother's wombs, they don't have to be popping babies, getting a bunch of STDs, sleeping around with a whole bunch of guys, getting slapped in nightclubs by a whole bunch of crazy dudes before they finally marry the guy that put the 3rd baby in their stomach before he could take out lobola. We all gotta be like that, right? And when women wake up to see that, no, I don't want to be that thing. I'm not gonna give some idiot a baby out of wedlock. Why doesn't he want to marry me but he wants my baby? He wants to put a baby in my stomach. Why? When we realize that I want to be a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, wrapped in plastic, it's fantastic. When women make a decision that they want to be Barbie girls and be very typical with a picket fence and 3.5 kids inside a marriage. In the black community, you're like, you're naive. Why am I naive? Because that is God's order for family. That's how he planned it. And if at all the Lord planned it that way, then it means that it must necessarily be his idea to give it to whomever will ask it from him. And that we must reject any cultural nuance that we must reject every cultural nuance that antagonizes that. Anything in culture that says that just do things inside out, like upside down, walk backwards. Anything that says that we need to walk backwards. When we try to antagonize it, we are naive. No, God said strive for that perfection. First and foremost, like he not only said strive for it, he pretty much prescribed it. He said there is no other life, there is no other way. If you live any other way, you're called a fornicator. You're an affront to my kingdom, you're an idolater. You don't make no sense. And seeing as apart from the Lord Jesus Christ, no one enters heaven, when then he says this is how you ought to be and you strive for it, you're essentially self-preserving on that day. Because who wants to go to hell? No one, right? Yeah. So when I say I don't want to go to hell, Candace Owens say I must fornicate. People like her say I must fornicate. Black men says I want a baby. What the heck? Who are you? To come and rock up in the life of some woman's daughter and demand a baby from a womb that you have not taken out damage or lobola for. In the black community, there is this payment for women who pop babies for men out of wedlock called damages. I don't know if they do that in America, but that's a thing, Candace Owens, in South Africa, where a dude be out there paying for a woman's damages. Damages, just like what happened with Shechem, who raped Dinah. When then he wanted to marry her, that was damage control, because he had not sought that woman's hand in marriage from the dad, and then only if she agreed and everybody in the family agreed, put her in the house and then lay with her. He goes and damages her body, and then after the act pays lobo. Just like what in the world it is that Shechem did to Dinah. Black men be out here littered in these streets doing stuff like that, putting babies in girlfriends' stomachs and then paying damages to their family members. I remember when my cousins were paid damages for upon giving random dudes babies out of wedlock. I was like, ain't nobody gonna pay damages for me. Me, I'm the kind of girl that men pay lobola for. That's it. I get married. I don't get paid damages for, because I ain't damaged. Nothing of me is broken. I'm not cracked like a whip. I am a whole thriving, beautiful young woman made by my mom and dad, having brought forth an intelligent, gifted woman that men ought realize this year I'm going to invest in, enough for them to not insist upon putting a baby in my stomach so they can pay damages. They somehow can afford tens of thousands of rands worth of damages, but they also, however, albeit being able to afford damages, they strangely couldn't in the run-up to those damages afford lobola, because damages have to be paid ever so immediately once a woman falls pregnant. So a dude out here rocking up with 10,000 rands, 20,000 rands, 30,000 rands, 50K in Jafela out of nowhere, but he didn't have lobola money. No. It's not like they can't raise the money. It's not like they can't find it somewhere hidden in a corner under a rock or whatever. It's that they don't want to marry women and so make out of them honest ladies that are respected, regarded, honest women that are basically pedestaled as the fairer sex that must be loved by men. They don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. And so for those reasons, they out here be paying damages that are almost the same amount of money as it would take for your uncle to agree to take lobola. Monies that are similar in size, in price to lobola. Men are paying in damages because all they want to do is just keep putting babies in women's stomach. I saw it. Do you understand? In my friends, I saw them getting paid damages for. I saw beautiful, vibrant women with great promising futures out to get ruined by pregnancy because their baby daddies were that lackluster. And I was like, that's not my life. I made a decision already very early in my 20s that that's not me, that I'm having a child in a marriage, children with my husband, where there is no risk of damages and of children belonging to different baby daddies, etc. I saw that I didn't want that. And then when I came to Christ, I asked that, God, that's an issue in my community. Fix it. I don't want it in my life. And then we get black people, women littered across corporate South Africa, friendship circle, family members, etc. On some. No, I had like 2 kids with my boyfriend prior to wedlock. Who do you think you are, Karabo? Listen, I'm Karabo. That's who I am. I'm a daughter of God, and the thing I desire is the wholesome, noble thing to desire. I am a child of God, and the thing I want is what God wants for us all. If I want to honor God, then you ought respect my decision, and you ought emulate it. You ought regard it, revere it, make it a prototype, put it up as a mantle, a monument, an example. Because if at all I'm following Jesus Christ, you ought follow me. You ought follow my example. Because there is no other standard. There is no other name given among men by which men must be saved other than the name of Jesus Christ. And so if Christ says this is the order of how life ought to be done, and I aspire to it, you don't get to make it about my race and how it is that black women, you typically must just keep on popping 20 babies for some dumb dude before another guy 5 babies down the line will then make out of you an honest woman when you're in your mid-30s or in your 40s. Now I'm 41. And precisely because I'm 41 years old, the demands on my person to do this typical black thing are just hot-bothered, littered about my person like picked up. And this is what I gotta say. I don't care if I'm 45 or 50. I am not doing that which I always frowned upon when I was a child. So if I must menopause first, then I guess Candace Owens, that's on you. If I must menopause first, then I guess all these spoiled brats that did not have a single iota of PTSD in their bones, but nonetheless came at women who had to strive to get things while they had silver spoons in their mouths, then I guess you have got to deal with all of that. You have to have on your conscience lending a woman over to freaking menopause because she refused to be a typical Sierra after giving a dude with 20 children already in the streets another child, hoping that he's gonna marry me. It's bad enough that you're trying to make that out of a born-again child of the living God, but that you're doing it at all is just bizarre. Let's move back there. Okay, what's up? The rain definitely helps to cool down the atmosphere. The rain helps to cool down the atmosphere, but it doesn't help because it's loud. So we're dealing with a dichotomy. I'm gonna have to increase my voice a little bit because rain tends to drown me out. I wish it would just stop because I want to be able to concentrate and focus my energies. I thought I would show you what in the world I was doing with my bag already when I was in the house, but I guess I can meander. Last point of contention or conversation, because it's really a very contentious conversation that I highlighted when I was in the house, was I was lamenting about the defeatism in the black community. How it is that I just keep getting dreams of pregnancy. Like, people are trying to put a baby in my stomach. And I'm just like, listen, I want to be a mom. I never ever became one of those crazy feminists that basically believed that children were a hindrance or are a hindrance and that women ruin their lives when they have them. I'm not a feminist. I wanted a litany, a cornucopia of children. I wasn't able to get them because of persecution. The very thing that I was lamenting about even in my last video, that, listen, as at this month, there are 7,000 cases of genocide, of martyrdom, genocide essentially in Nigeria of Christians. There is a lot of abuse of saints in certain parts of the world. It's what I'm getting at. And people are not getting to those Christians fast enough, and those Christians can't have normal lives. They cannot live out their Christian lives in a glorified fashion where it is that they can show the beauty of godliness and what it achieves eventually in life. Because there's always a machete on their neck, because there is always a gun to their heads, and because there is always a hindrance to their prosperity. Women there are taken by force and raped, and that's how they bring forth children to their rapists. Rapists of which, of course, are not there to take care of those children. Those women gotta be single parents having been raped, but they're godly. And so because they're godly, they don't have abortions, but they bring forth seed from their afflictors. Therefore, they can't have the picket fence. They can't have the Barbie girl in a Barbie world wrapped in plastic, life. They can't have that wrapped in plastic Barbie girl life because they were raped by their castigators. Some of them are taken forcefully in arranged marriages, wed off to Islamist jihadis as Christian women. And so for those reasons, they cannot show a godly marriage. For those reasons, they cannot sport a wedding ring, all happy with a glorious gown on their wedding days to the body of Christ to encourage them to wait on God for husbands, because they were just taken off the street and put in some old man's house and made to pop 20 babies that will inevitably be raised up in Sharia law, in Islamic religion, even though this woman is in and of herself a Christian, where it is that she is forced to recant her faith or die. So living side by side to a man that she, in the climate of, is wearing a hijab and is claiming to be a Muslim, but still communes with Jesus for the sake of her children and for the sake of her continued life. When this man dies, this woman then gives her life entirely over to the service and worship of God, because now she's free. But before then, she was held hostage under Islamic rule tyranny. That's what's happening in Africa to women. They cannot rock up on Instagram and on Facebook and say, look at what Jesus did for me. Look at my husband. Look at what I've been given. Look at my wedding ring. Look at my engagement ring. They're aged, turned 41 as spinsters, albeit having been perfectly eligible bachelorettes, albeit having been perfectly marriable young women, albeit having given their lives to Christ at 21, 22, 18. So they could have gotten married very young. And yet, they've been held hostage by sorcery, by all different kinds of nasty tyranny and oppression to make sure that they can't do anything or go anywhere. Next thing you get, a perfectly marriable 26-year-old woman turning 41 still with no husband and no children. And the only reason why she doesn't have a husband, neither children, is because she refused to marry a man that is not in Christ. And she refused to have a baby out of wedlock, while encircled by a community of lunatics that kept on saying, a child is raised by a village will help you raise a child. If you are broody, if you've got a maternal instinct yawning in you, if you have a desire to be a baby mama, listen, get a boyfriend and have a baby. We all did it. Look at how we also all turned out, having been raised by single moms. We're fine. So have a child because your maternal instinct is yawning. But where are you going to find a baby daddy? Especially when you basically turn over. When you hop over the age of 35, you're then told, again, TikTok, yeah, well, the only reason why I am 41 without children and 41 without a husband is because I refuse to be married at 28 to a devil worshiper. At the age of 28, I dated some dude that claimed to love Jesus Christ. Listen, his favorite preacher was Charles Spurgeon. I found out that he used witchcraft on me, Korobela, that he was involved in some dark things. He was also very rude, could not speak well to me. Every so often teased me, dissed me, mocked me. So I dumped him within 2 months because, listen, I was self-respecting. I've always been that way. Yeah, but that guy and I were busy talking marriage during the season when I was yet to see his yawning flaws. So I would have been a bride by 29 and given birth to the children of some heinous monster that would have likely even teased me in my pregnancy. It's not that no one wanted to marry me. It's that I didn't want to marry anyone that wanted to marry me. Is that they were all ungodly. Is that they were all into witchcraft. Is that they were all using korobela. Is that they all were insincere. Is that they all could not rightly divide God's word. Is that they all used the name of God as a means to tyrannize, terrorize, afflict, megalomaniacally control women. Is that they could not be corrected. Just like, again, I'm getting into this, Joshua Mhlake. Listen, so you can understand what I was facing from the age of 26 when I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ, all the way up until now that I'm 41. So you can understand what kind of men wanted to marry me. We're gonna talk, because we touched on him briefly, about Joshua Mhlake. I could never, being as self-respecting and as hot-headed as I am, as strong and level-headed and hot-headed as I am, with these kinds of opinions and this ability to self-examine, and also with this ability to self-observe and gaze upon a circumstance as to whether or not it makes sense. And so leave, in spite of what my feelings might be. I've always been emotionally mature enough to leave a situation that I might be tied to emotionally, but it just did not make any other sense in any other fashion. Psychologically, mentally, what is this? Not competitively, but compatibility. Like just in terms of all other life issues. If it didn't make no sense, I was able to basically tell myself that time heals all wounds. I've always had that maturity. I've always had a maturity, even as a teenage girl before coming to the Lord Jesus Christ, to walk out of a situation that was just freaking bizarre. It didn't make any sense, but I was still very hotly invested emotionally in it. I walked away from my first love and the guy that broke my virginity at the age of 17 because of the fact that he was just rude. One time I told him I loved him and he responded by saying, "Don't say it so much, you might wear it out." He kept saying stuff like that. Because he broke my virginity, he imagined that he could just speak anyhow to me. One day my mom moved out of home. Well, we moved out of home. I was a teenage girl living with my mom and I didn't tell him. One day my mother moves out. One day we move out of where we used to stay and where my boyfriend used to visit me, and I didn't tell him because he was rude to me on the phone one time. And I was like, how much of this am I gonna take? Listen, I'm only 17. I'm only going on 18. Sexually active with a guy that I gave my body to. Virgin. I was in love with him like no man's business, and I had given my body to him, having never slept with a guy before. And I was like, let sleeping dogs lie. It is what it is. Ain't nobody gonna ever break my virginity again. I'm never gonna have a first love, neither a first time guy in my life again. But who in the world takes this level of just dastardly down talking in their stride? The guy was shocked out of his mind because he imagined I could go nowhere. He imagined I was going nowhere because I was that in love with him. Enough for him to tell me, don't say it so much, you might wear it out. I've always had an emotional maturity to leave an emotionally attached situation where I was very much in there with my heart. I then told myself that time heals all wounds, striving through it, gnashing my teeth as I feel my way in the sorrow of not being with someone I'm very much in love with because you're rude. I've always been that way since I was just a child. How much more now that I'm born again and inspired by the precepts of Jesus Christ? Am I then gonna leave a dude that is obviously unbiblical, ungodly when I've got feelings for him? A man that out here is manifesting verbal abuser now in mild order, but in the future it's going to be in tall order. How much more? So when this little rudeling rudely spoke to me one more time, after just 2 months of dating him, after exchanging I love yous, and after talking about marriage, I walked out and just like my ex-boyfriend who broke my virginity, he was shocked out of his mind. He was shocked. So why am I single at 41? Because I know how to walk, I know how to step, I used the Sam Smith song, one of my other videos long ago when I was breaking into the yoga New Year's Eve this year. You must think that I'm foolish. You must think that I'm a fool. You must think that I'm new to this. But I've been down this road before. I'm never gonna let you close to me, even when you mean the most to me, cause every time I open up it hurts. I'm never gonna let you get my point. And the moral of the story was, I'm way too good at goodbye. I'm way too good at goodbye. I'm way too good at goodbye. Oh no. I sang that song to break into the new year, letting people know that I don't care that you're turning me 41, seeing as I was entering into my 41st year of age. But I know how to say goodbye. I know how to leave. I know how to stay. I know how to move on from a situation that don't make no sense, because I know how to forecast. I know how to draft a model, if you will. A financial model, if you will, as to whether or not something is going to bear fruit for me in the future with a positive net present value. And if at all my financial model is not giving, if it comes back with a negative net present value, even though I have invested money in it to date, even though I've done 45% worth of this project, if at all the forecast that I now do upon reassessing the project, taking stock again in the center of the project, if at all I come to learn that while at the beginning of the project it was giving positive net present value, there are some factors in the equation that I did not enter in that are going to influence the outcomes eventually. And once I input these new factors, if at all then now, because of them, the net present value is negative, even if I have spent 2 million rands in this, even if I've spent a cool billion, I'll let it go. In financial modeling, it's called when you keep on in a crazy situation, even though it is no longer bearing any financial fruit. It's called throwing money into sunken costs. Essentially, you're only taking this to the end because you've already put in so much time. That's why a lot of women in the Black community end up marrying gender-based violence monsters, because they've given them 2 children. Or men that even though they don't beat them up, they're nonetheless emotionally, psychologically, and all the other kinds of abusive. They don't care about their health. They sleep with other women out there and bring chlamydia home. They don't care about this. You have got so many frustrations with a boyfriend, and you insist on walking down the aisle because Black women are always singing that Yemi Alade song. See me see trouble, when are you gonna marry me, oh? See, we've been dating for many years now, you want to leave me for lobola. See me see trouble, you go marry me, oh? Today, because Black women are always sprinting down the aisle instead of gently walking. They marry boyfriends that they have complained about, cried about, lamented about, but hey, guess what? I've got 2.5 kids with him, and so since he proposed, since he took out lobola, even though for the first 2 children he paid damages, I'm gonna marry him. And then they find themselves being these miserable wives. Miserable wives. I've seen enough of it in my elders, in my own peers, and in, strangely, the Gen Zs that are coming up. They keep making the same mistakes. And I'm like, as in, I've gone into this, I've seen it for myself. I'm smart enough to do a financial calculation. And if at all I pull out negative returns, honey, I'm not doing it, because I'm not going to be hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. I'm not going to do it. And now look at the very same dudes that I walked away from because what am I going to do with you? Look at how now today they're trying to make out of me a mistress, a side piece, a concubine. Look at how they're now today trying to make out of me a mistress, a side piece, a concubine, something that is a jump off. Yeah, frustrating the women that said at least Temba took out lobola. They're frustrating the women that I spent all my huffing and puffing seasons trying to counsel against. Women I tried to counsel against entering into marriages with men like these. Now today their husbands are staking out my ministry, and they're hoping to embarrass the living daylights out of me like that woman at that Coldplay concert on a kiss cam. Seductress, adulteress, Delilah out here, leading astray an innocent man that has a wife that he loves at home, but he just could not overwhelm himself. He could not, overcome the overwhelming seduction of this seductress. They always make the monster in the equation the woman. They always make the seductress or the adulteress the woman with whom a man has been caught in an affair. She's always the enemy, the monster. But I'm here to highlight to you, to show you that, listen, here it is that I'm a consecrated, blood-bought, born-again daughter of the living God, waiting on God for a husband. And your husbands have locked me in a cage like an animal, and have said, unless you concede, I won't give you your freedom. They have utilized their resources to bribe the whole planet using women, and have said, unless you become my mistress, my concubine, I'm not going to barge. They are trying to make out of me that Proverbs 7 woman when I am a Proverbs 31 woman. My feet don't go down to death. I am not trying to invite a man to my bed so we can take our fill of love all night on a bed that is sprinkled with spices and myrrh. I am saying I don't want you. I don't want you. I keep on telling your husbands, get out. I'm holding a rifle, a handgun, and a bomb, a landmine is at the perimeter of my grass, my lawn. So these nasty men can't come in. Whole bunch of them have been disembodied just by simply trying to enter my yard. And I'm like, get out of my house, I don't want to be with a married man. And then they're like, they are staking out my ministry, waiting for me to finally capitulate, give up, essentially be so afflicted with pain, in spite of how berated I am, that I will finally just accommodate, because after all, I don't have time. I'm 41. I am the one rejecting your dastardly husbands. Do you understand? And yet you're the ones that are insistent upon me. But every time a woman gets caught in a hotel room with some dastardly beast, it's always the girl that seduced him. She's the one that slid into his DMs. She's the one that couldn't resist his that could not exercise self-control. She's the one that essentially licked his cheeks like he was ice cream, until the wife stood no chance. They make women look like Delilah. They make women look like the seductress. If men, however, have got power to make sure that a woman goes nowhere unless she becomes a mistress on that day, are your husbands not the ones that need desperately to be put on a leash? I'm trying to show women that the counsel I gave you years ago, you didn't take it. And the thing that you were always lamenting against as a girlfriend, now it's become a hairy beast now that you're married. And the problem is being evidenced because God is taking up the cause of women. Remember the other day I sang, ever so briefly because I don't know the song, just using small little parts of it. This is a man's world. In my video I spoke about how it is that this is a man's world. It indeed is. In the garden when Adam and Eve fell, the Lord said that Adam, from now on going forward, you are going to try to rule Eve. You are going to rule her. So essentially you're going to want to lord it over her with an iron fist. You will not care for her opinion, and whatever she wants to do, you're going to say, but listen, my mind is made up. I've made a decision, run with it. But Eve is going to love Adam so much, her judgment was that your desire will be for your husband. That even though this guy is unreasonable, she will nonetheless abide, she will concede, she will take his nonsense in her stride. That is the judgment of men and women when they don't know Christ. That is the judgment on men and women. That's what is going to finally bring the end of the world on board. Just this clash of the titans, if you will, otherwise known as clash of the sexes. They will reach such a recalcitrant nth degree that the world must be ended. It is as a result of the rebellion of men and women on the ground that the world ends at all. It is because women want the masculinity of men in the end that the world ends. And it is because men refuse to walk in their own manhood. So we get a very effeminate body of men and a very masculine butch body of women. And in the masculinity of women, they are literally as harsh and as forceful as men can be when they're in an abusive relationship with a woman over whom they're loading it over with an iron fist. And men are not muscular enough, man enough to essentially intervene where they ought to intervene. So the effeminizing of men and the masculinizing of women then brings the world literally to its knees, refusing to maintain the patriarchal strength in favor of a matriarchal travesty. That's what eventually happens. And we see it littered about these streets. So therefore, women will insist upon a very ugly, unprotected, self-leading, self-elevating, and self-propelling archetype of a woman, while men will be standoffish pertaining the sorrow of women. They will not intervene. Because of this lack of intervention, everybody is going to be a law unto themselves, and they will do what is right in their own eyes. As a result of doing what is right in one's own eyes, there therefore then becomes on that day what we call anarchy across the board. And anarchy is what ends the world. According to God's word, the last days are going to be like the days of Noah, where the thoughts and intentions of men were evil continually, and there was violence all across the earth. And there was a procreation issue, where it is that the wrong way in which you make children was just happening. Proliferation of Nephilim, sons of God sleeping with daughters of men. So there is a hybrid issue, there is a lawlessness issue, and there is a gender dysphoria issue. There is a violence issue, and there is a therefore lack of protection for the lowly, the oppressed, the widows, and the orphans issue. Essentially, there is what we call a everybody is left out on a limb issue. Too many poor people, too many women with no justice, too many orphaned children, too many. That's the last days. And you literally manufacture, as in a factory, orphans. When you keep making babies out of wedlock, you literally manufacture them, because hardship that comes in single motherhood tends to kill some women with STDs, sleeping around with aboputmadlesa, doing whatever they need to do to get ahead. It also kills them in gender-based violence. And there being no fathers then produces even violent children that are hard to manage, that are a law unto themselves, running themselves in their own little image, with men also, like I said, deadbeats beating down women and not taking responsibility. Manufacture of orphans, be it by death or just abandonment, and sexes absolutely being in denial, being in entire rebellion to what they ought to be and how they ought to operate in these streets. When you make an observation of that and then you try to forewarn people that, listen, this is the inevitability, this is the eventuality of your future if you don't give your life to Christ, because the devil is going to pursue you with a grain. He's going to pursue you with a typicality. And women are like, wankime, like a religion. Like, you know, the other day I lamented against Monique, who was speaking about Christianity and saying, y'all's God got too many rules. When then you say that our God has too many rules, you will neglect, you will disregard, and you will walk away from, therefore, from the only source of protection and the only institution that can protect you from orphaned children, largely anyway, and also from irresponsible men and women disregarding their gender roles. I warned against that. I did. I don't know if I'm getting fat or what, but my finger was starting to feel uncomfortable from all these rings, so whatever. haven't been working out, so I might just be getting fat. You tell me, how's my cheek game doing? Am I fat? Anyway, women disregarding their roles and men also disregarding their roles. And then you get an epidemic of women standing back while violent men take women. You then get an epidemic of violent men taking women by force because I'm Frank Sinatra and I'm gonna do it my way. I'm Frank Sinatra and I'm gonna do it literally exactly how I want it to be done. And you don't get to tell me anything, Karabo. And it's like, listen, if God be for us, can nobody be against us? So do you with your megalomaniacal disposition, but I have true protection. His name is Jesus. And I tried to warn women, his name is Christ. And now, 10 years down the line, now that everybody's a middle-aged woman, I'm 41 now. Now they realize the folly of having married a Sizwe Tamba Jabu that I warned against. And now they see the folly of that. And now they're standing back saying we all did it. And they don't even realize that what they're doing is pushing me to one of their husbands so as to ruin me as a woman. So one woman got to get heartbroken, two women, in order that other women can feel comforted in their ability to be able to relate with each other's fallenness. When then I reject all these things, listen, both men and women in concert are like, die then. And then my response to that is my point exactly. You have not because you ask not, and so you kill. That's what the Bible says in the book of James. You have not because you ask not. After all, you sprinted down the aisle, you did not walk, right? You have not because you ask not, and so you kill. You didn't ask God, neither were you prepared upon asking him to essentially wait on him, and now you're killing me. Cain killing Abel. And when you do ask, you ask that you might spend it on your passions, so God flat out ignores you. And then you want to make it look like God does not care for me, God does not care for Christians when you're the one incarcerating me. Remember I said earlier that this is Africa, and in the Middle East too, this is an issue. Those who convert to Christianity here will be incarcerated by something if they don't find a way to escape. If they don't get incubated, ensconced by something real fast, they will be harassed. And so there will not be very many testimonies littered about the streets that are very encouraging of Christian marriages, of Christian this, of Christian that. And the issue is because the persecution in those cities, those towns, those villages, those countries is so bad that Christians cannot sport an engagement ring with gladness and joy and show her photos on Instagram and her wedding be featured on YouTube to inspire many, because you're gonna have your friend coming at you, your cousin coming at you, your brother coming at you. If they can sabotage it, they sabotage it. And if they succeed to sabotage it, absent of you fleeing to the next town, the Bible says if they persecute you in one town, flee to the next. Absent of you moving to another country, you will not be able to successfully marry. And so you're going to get some stupid woman out here flossing her marriage, living in a free country like America. I guess living in a free country like America, you're going to get a bit of a Candace Owens out here flossing her marriage in my face. And her life that escaped the black grain without having compassion for the fact that I'm in South Africa. And in my nation, there are ritualists who feel entitled to women. They're rapey. And women, just like what Candace Owens indeed appears to be doing to me from what I'm dreaming. Call me crazy, I don't care. And nobody watches me, so I can go out on a limb and risk sharing certain prophecies, certain things I see in dreams. Y'all know I ain't got nothing against Candace Owens. If anything, in my last video, I was rooting for her. And I only mention her because she's been so crazy anti-Semitic. So frankly, even me commenting like this, I have no incentive to just out to be coming at Candace Owens, nothing. And I finally, just like Melissa Doherty, I'm exposing her because how are you going to be out to harassing me in an email? But instead of an email, it's my dream space. I know witchcraft from a mile away. Flossing and flaunting your Instagram marriage. Because if you as a black woman in America make a decision, just like the one that I made in 2011, give my life to Christ and escape from the black grain, walk away from the leftist lunacy, and recognize what makes for sound biblical politics. I love what Charlie Kirk said one time in an interview. He was so bold. He was so bold, that guy. He was so brave. He said things that a lot of us out here be cowering because we know what the response is going to be. We know what the lashback is going to be. He said you cannot be a Democrat and be any kind of believable Christian. Because the things that Democrats stand for, the left, what they stand for, are crazy, they're bizarre. They're out to proliferating pro-choice. They're out to proliferating, gender anarchy. You are who you want to be even if you're a furry, and you are who you want to be even though being born with this many chromosomes, you're going to decide that you got other chromosomes. The left is crazy. They go against everything that makes for biblical Christianity. They never used to be crazy. The left are the ones who set the slaves free. But you see, once you ultimately enjoy the glories of God's restoration, you then also become crazy because mankind, absent of God's restrainer, make like the Hebrews in the wilderness, that even though you saw the miracles of war of God taking you out of Egypt, you will, in Egypt, build a golden calf. The left set slaves free, and the left in history largely made sense. Martin Luther King was left. But then in 2025, because it is the party of the liberated, they then became too liberated now, didn't they? Just like the Hebrews in the wilderness. They get out of Egypt, leftist, and in the wilderness, it becomes clear that conservative values make more sense now that we're in this crazy era. Restore back to God. And then they decide that, listen, we are the party of the liberated. We are the party of the freed. We are the party of the freed slaves. Even the ANC was left. Back when we got out of apartheid, it made sense to be left back then. Christian values were aligned, tied to leftist politics, but not so much to rightist politics. Rightist politics in history were systematically oppressive. They're the ones that held black people in a bunch and used the Bible to justify slavery. And it was the left that were like, no, slavery is wrong. Set free your slaves. Let people have liberties. Let women vote. And then after they got given all those freedoms and won all that respect, and they won all these numbers of people that were liberated by them, they then took it too far. That over and above setting women free to vote, set men free to sleep with men. Even though already in the 80s it was clear that the epidemic of HIV commenced in the homosexual community. You would imagine that thanks to that community starting this thing that we should not be trying to punt it, we should not be trying to push it down people's throats, but instead the left is the one that were like, listen, we are the party of the freeing of people. We're gonna free the gays, even though they're the root cause of HIV. Okay, yeah, no, the same thing then is still happening today, where they're getting more and more extreme, more and more extreme with freeing people to be who they want to be. Now, pedophiles are apparently acceptable. Now, this, yeah, you get my point, right? You enter into freedom space, and in that free space, you build a golden calf. That's what it was like in South Africa as well, right? After apartheid, we came out of apartheid with largely leftist politics. We got set free because every person is made in the image of God, and we are to roam freely. We are to work by the sweat of our brow and get honest salaries. It made sense. Retribution, restoration, affirmative action made sense at the very beginning of the end of systematic oppression. But then when you just linger and it becomes when you just linger it and it doesn't end, and now you're an affront to white folk, then that's when rightist politics now starts to make sense. Listen, why in the world under heaven are you so determined for your affirmative action 27,000 years after apartheid ended? Why are you still not with a meritocracy? Why, now that it's been all these years down the line since apartheid ended, why are you not allowing now the economy to recover, to bounce back, to re-energize, seeing as we're a rainbow nation? And we all get that slavery is wrong. We all get that different bathrooms are wrong. We all get that different beaches are wrong. But what's also wrong, it's denying white people jobs because of their skin color. Like, wait, like, and I keep on lamenting about that. So that is literally exactly what is going on over here. And so I started out leftist because it just made sense to be that way when I'm 41 years old. I grew up at the end of apartheid. Of course, being black, I wanted to be free. Everybody in the black community wanted to be free. Everybody loved Mandela. I wanted to be free. And I no longer wanted to be frowned and looked down on because of my skin color. I was just a child, but I knew that the politics of the time made sense for me to belong to a certain side. It made sense to be an ANC fan or advocate or follower in 1989, but then it stopped being fashionable in the year 2014, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. It started being problematic to hold on to ANC, because that's what happens when you free people from slavery. They become greedy and entitled, and they forget the God who split the Red Sea. And that's exactly what's happened. So, of course, just like Candace Owens, I moved away from the left and over to the right, because the right was now complaining that, okay, listen, it's been, 50 years since stuff ended. It's been 70 years. It's been this, it's been that. It's been 30 years. And you're still hurting us. And black people, I saw an unreasonableness in them. I was like, whoa, dudes. And on top of that, you're entitled. Now you feel as if the white people must grovel at your feet. They must kiss your toes. They must eat them like Kit Kat. What are you doing? You're rude. These are people that live in our country. They're citizens. And it's gotten so bad that now in my country, we've got literally white refugees that have left here to live in America. Bizarre. We had black refugees in the days of apartheid living in other parts of Africa and in America. Miriam Makeba was a black refugee in America. And now we've got white refugees in America. I was like, how did this happen? Yeah, that's what happened. When you don't have righteousness, when you don't see when something needs to now end, when something must stop, when it must simmer down, because now you've retributed and now you feel entitled because you want to sit your lazy bump down and just get fat and continue to be fed by the struggle of your mom and dad who are now 6 feet under. And it's been a good 20 years since then. You still want to get fat from unjust laws because they start to become unjust as time progresses. There was a time when they were just, but then the bell curve hit a plateau and started to plunge downwards. And so therefore now we need to change our focus. Adjust the narrative and the rhetoric to fit the times and fit the progress we've made up to now. And so you find a whole bunch of people moving over to the left, and of course within the black community you're now given, listen, if I was in the US, a nation that is free, when then I made my mind up in 2011 that I want Jesus, because I noticed the curve, the turn, the plateau at the top of the parabola. I noticed the crazy of black people. I was a black woman having been raised a particular way. Bit of a pivotal age, because apartheid was just ending when I was just a child. So I saw a little bit of it, but not enough to have PTSD from it. Pivotal age. Yeah. The law of God, it is written in his word that the Lord puts his law on our hearts. So essentially our consciences defeat us from the very get-go. Our consciences give us a run for our money from the very get-go. So even though you may have been raised a particular way, When something is wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, right? When something does not make sense, it does not make sense, it does not make sense, right? When I became a young woman in her early 20s, having come, of course, from teenage years where everybody was largely unpregnant, everybody largely considered pregnancy a taboo. I had come from, in the days of my university, up to the days of my second year of varsity, falling pregnant was kind of taboo at that stage, even though you were already out of high school. There was this one girl that fell pregnant in my crew of friends in varsity by a Budmazesa, by some older dude that I think was married. Like, it was just such a taboo. I had to go and close the window. Yeah, it was such a taboo. She fell pregnant. We were 19. While that's old enough to have a baby, I mean, for as soon as you can basically have a baby, when you have one, it shouldn't be taboo because that's how God made it. But some ages are just young and everybody was largely unpregnant. We also had, in my high school, we also had a fertile Bertle. My cousin and I used to call her fertile Bertle, even though my cousin was in another school. I told her that there's a girl in my high school in matric that's writing her examinations in the principal's office because she's heavily pregnant. And my cousin was like, ha ha ha, your schoolmate is fertile Bertle. Fertile Bertle, because she saw it on some show on TV where some young pregnant girl that was still a teenager was called by her guy friend Fertile Bertle. So my cousin called that friend of mine, no, she wasn't a friend, she was a student in my school, Fertile Bertle. So I just started calling young women that fell pregnant too young Fertile Bertle, because she's just fertile. Busy having babies all over the show while all of us consider it taboo. So there was a fertile Bertle in my high school, and then there was also another fertile Bertle in varsity who at the age of 19 fell pregnant by a much older guy who was, I don't know if he was married or what, but he was just like messing with a university student. It was still kind of taboo to be falling pregnant then, especially considering largely most of us didn't have cars, we didn't have careers, we didn't have money, so it was just like, who is going to pay for that baby? I guess her baby daddy, right? Yeah, type establishment thing. But then when I turned like 21, 22, all of a sudden I started noticing a change where it is that it stopped being taboo to fall pregnant. If anything, people started making it fashion. I'm looking for stuff to moisturize my lips. And listen, it's black culture. Black culture. Yo, there are consequences in life of certain activity early. Ne? Yeah. I started noticing when I was around 2021, 20 years old, 21 years old, not very long ago from the days of Fertile Bertle, the mockery. I started to notice that my peers were literally planning pregnancies. They were planning babies. My cousin at like 22 actually got broody, yes, and started buying baby magazines. And even though she was unstable in her career and her baby daddy didn't have a job, they literally planned a baby. She had a baby in a public hospital with no medical aid, and they ended up living in a back room at the guy's house where his parents stayed. And this was not the first time something like this happened. There was a friend of ours that some years ago, this friend was a few years older than us. She was perhaps older than us by 4 years. And this chick, when she was about 21, 22, had a baby with a guy, and because nobody was financially stable, they ended up living in a back room at the back of the house of the guy, the parents of the guy. No one was married. That's when I learned of the term, or the principle, if you will, whatever, of damages, because now it was within our annals for us to be talking such conversations, because so many of my peers got paid damages for giving guys babies. I started noticing when I was around 2021 that people were not so much in the black community around me, my friends, etc., gunning for excitement and anticipation of marriage now, because we're getting older. We're graduating from university, we're entering our first jobs in corporate. No longer were people buzzing and excited now. So like when you're in high school, you're buzzing and excited about matric dance, that's what you're planning, right? What dress are you gonna wear? Where are you gonna get your nails did? And then once you're out, once you're in matric, you are bustling and excited about varsity. Yeah, but then when you graduate varsity, you're like bustling and excited about, oh, I met a guy and we're getting married. And I've got my first job in corporate. I noticed in the black community in particular, because I went to a multiracial school and a multiracial university, that there was a weird order of events that didn't make sense and that was not there in other racial demographics. I had a lot of Indian friends in high school, a lot of white peers in high school, and in, of course, what is it, like a corporate South Africa. And then once I was a Christian, I had quite a few white friends as well because of the faith. But when it comes to friendships, like as in people that I hang with, that I talk with, that I call every night,